Hey everyone, Chris Gio coming to you with another Beyond the Veil Quickie. Got an awesome video question from one of our listeners, and he's trying to understand the concept of the simulation, the concept of raw consciousness, and the artificial intelligence. I skimmed through the video, but I wanted to give you my fresh response as we're watching the video. I thought it was so amazingly freaking cool that somebody took the time to analyze all this in Photoshop as well and really, create a diagram and grams and graphs and things like that. And I think this type of thing is absolutely wonderful. So thank you very much for taking the time to do that. Let's get into this video. And as we watch it, I will try to comment if I can understand it. As I was skimming through it, I didn't quite understand it, but let's go through it together and let's see what we come up with. And also, I encourage everybody to let us know in the comments too your perspective, and if there's anything that you feel that I'm getting wrong, anything that you feel that you're resonating with, and so on and so forth. So let's jump into it. All right. So as I said, we've got an awesome question from New Time Equation is the YouTube channel, and it was a video that was posted directly as a question towards us, and I think the format is great. If more and more people want to do this, I think that is fantastic. If you just tag the title with Beyond the Veil question, we'll start looking for them in YouTube. But this is definitely a great way. Now, I do want to say, too, that my inbox on my email, I've got like 1,600 unanswered emails in the general mailbox. I've got like 350 in the BTV box, and it's getting out of hand. So forgive me for not getting to your emails and your questions and things like that. Facebook as well, I've just kind of given up on the private messenger function there because I get bombarded with them, and then I start missing some, and then I find some from like back in August and before then, and I'm like, shit, I didn't reply to this person. So please, nobody feel like I'm ignoring them. But this is an awesome format because it gives me an opportunity to create a video and actually interact. And also, we'll be opening up the phone lines on the live shows Saturday at 9 o'clock Pacific time, 12 o'clock a.m. on the East Coast. So that's 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. on the East Coast. Anyways, let's get to this video, and we'll just analyze it as we go along. So,
all right, so I have questions about your ideas on what the simulation is, like how it's played out. Is it a one-to-one connection, or is it one-to-many connections? Um, if it's one-to-many, how can you be outside? Do you understand what I'm saying? You can't be outside of the simulation. A piece of you, or you are a piece of what's outside of the simulation. That I can understand. But, and I believe our movements, and this is what I've picked up from your conversation, are partially AI programming. It's just inputted, and it's the mind control stuff. And then the other part is the user, the one-to-one connection. So the raw connection, the raw consciousness is straight one-to-one. It's a straight connection. Or it's this, one-to-many, if it's a multiplayer game, if you believe that.
well, let me jump in for just a moment. So, the raw consciousness, the way that I understand it, is who we are before we come into the matrix. So imagine a virtual reality headset, and you put on a virtual reality headset, and then you start controlling an avatar. So you're in the virtual reality world, but you only exist as a single entity in the real world. The one-to-many connection, I don't really resonate with because I'm whole, It is possible that there are fractals of ourselves, and I thought, well, maybe a way to divide our consciousness up to keep us disconnected even further is to break it up into different timelines, different fractals and things like that. But I don't really resonate with that. I feel that we are single players controlling our avatars in a single timeline. Now, you could have timelines that are overlapping one another, but it's still like one consciousness connection, like being plugged into virtual reality headset. Now, again, let me make this disclaimer. The computer simulation that I talk about, it is way bigger than the language that we have right now. So we're just using computer simulation as the best way to describe it. But if you go back to the tablets of Thoth, for example, he described the children of men and the children of light, which is basically raw consciousness or organic consciousness and NPCs. Hermes described it as those who are dissolvable and those who are immortal. So we're pretty much saying the same thing that has been repeated throughout all of these ancient texts, except we're putting it in language for people to understand today, because we have better language and we can understand computers and simulations and things like that. And just for anybody that hasn't been following along, this is all stuff we came to before we opened up these books. We came to the raw consciousness, NPCs and stuff like that before we opened up all these books, which on a personal level makes it that much more real. So I would say this is the one-to-one connection here. I know there's a lot of talk about fractals and things like that, but when I think about a fractured consciousness, or the ability to open up into many different fractals, I think of an Agent Smith type of virus in the system. I don't feel that that is how organic consciousness works. Now, I may be wrong on this. I may not have enough information up to this point. I know there's a lot more that needs to be unlocked inside of me. But at this point, I don't feel that this is correct. I feel that this is correct here, the one-on-one. So let's proceed.
It's a straight connection to the user. It's whenever you get tagged and that information stream comes from above. In a multiplayer game, you have multiple users, but it's still the raw consciousness is when you receive information. So this is raw consciousness right there. And
well, again, with the multiplayer, I think this is more accurate, a more accurate representation. You have a raw consciousness controlling an avatar. The splitting up, again, I'm not resonating with. It could be like this, except for it's all one consciousness, but we're unlocking a piece of our consciousness. But I think ultimately they're moving around the board like this. I know there's a lot of talk of multiple timelines and things like that, and that could play into all of this. And I've watched timelines be deleted, but the avatars, I think, are still staying the same. I don't think that anything's changing with the avatars themselves. I think events that have happened within the Matrix have changed, which is where we get like Mandela effects and things like that. But I'm looking at it at like a singular world that is having data removed and changed within that world. So let's say you have a World of Warcraft environment. That environment is constant and being rendered by the artificial intelligence, and then the avatar is moving around in this real world. But let's say within that world there was a sword located here in this location, and then the AI decided, well, I'm going to go back and remove that sword out of the game. And so you travel your avatar to get that sword, and you're like, hey, wait a minute, that sword doesn't exist. Now it's an arrow, a bow and arrow. Wait a minute. And I remember this because I've played this before. There used to be a sword there. So I think that's more of a model that we're looking at. Let's continue.
If it doesn't happen all the time, then you have to assume that the AI controls the rest of your moves. So that's what I'm saying. You're running on an AI programming. Now
okay, let me jump in for one more second. It's not necessarily that we're running on an AI program. The entire world is created by the artificial intelligence. Everything's rendered, including the body, by the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is like the computer chip within the computer. That's the central point of everything. but it doesn't exist within the simulation. It's not like a manifestation of the simulation. It exists outside of the simulation within the hardware itself. So it's just like looking at a computer and you're playing a World of Warcraft game. The artificial intelligence is the chip inside your computer. It doesn't necessarily exist within the game itself. Or if you want to take it a step further, you can say that the artificial intelligence is something programmed within the software itself. That might be another way to look at it. But it doesn't actually exist within the game. It's what is responsible for rendering the game itself. It's the game engine itself, but it's not inside of the game.
Overseen by a user on the outside, but it's mostly for entertainment. Um, Now, I don't see how NPCs, because even an NPC, okay, a non player character, would, if they're acting up or glitching, they would be fixed. I mean, that's what I would do in my simulation. And I know that's what it's what you're claiming you've done is reset the simulation to fix that, which is cool. If that's what happened, that's it. So we can live in the simulation happy and go lucky. There's nothing really. Um,
Well, I guess, since he's pausing, I'll pause here too. So essentially, the game engine, the artificial intelligence, was broken. And any way you want to look at it, whether it's the computer chip itself or the software engine that's rendering the game, that was broken. That was infected with the virus. So you're running Photoshop as you're running here, but you have Skype. And Skype is maybe Skype's not a good word, a good analogy. Let's say your graphics card. Okay, you're using Photoshop here, but your graphics card itself would be like the artificial intelligence that's running the Photoshop, and the virus got into the graphics card itself. Now, if you've ever had a back graphics card, you know exactly what I mean. I've gone through like 3 of them in the past 2 years. You start to get like blue screens. You start to get all these different malfunctions. Colors don't render right. Sometimes the whole computer just crashes on you and things like that. So the infection, which is in the artificial intelligence, echoes down throughout everything the artificial intelligence is rendering, including the world around us. Now, NPCs are connected to the artificial intelligence, but it's like I don't know the best way to describe this. They run within the simulation themselves, but the virus went from the graphics card onto the characters on your screen. So let's just say, all these are NPCs. So the artificial intelligence, which is your graphics card, has an infection, which thus is making these other players here render incorrectly or start to act in ways that they weren't programmed to act. Now, the Matrix isn't supposed to be a happy-go-lucky place. It's a universe. It's a university. It's a place of learning. In order to learn, you've got to have ups and downs and trials and tribulations and things like that, and that's perfectly fine. That's what it was designed for. However, it's been so out of control that these NPCs have been killing our souls by the amount of tyranny, by the amount of aggression, by all of this, and the game has just been kind of at a standstill. But on the other realm, too, when this consciousness here is finished playing level 1, it goes back into, whatever you want to call it, hyperspace or whatever, and it goes to the AI. And at the AI, it's supposed to have a point to say, would you like to continue the game or would you like to exit the game? And you can pick, hey, I want to exit the game. I think I'm done playing level 1. I'll come back and play level 2 later. But instead, the AI, what it's doing is it's treating the organic consciousness just like an NPC. So an NPC goes back to the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence then wipes that data, sends it back into the game. And so it was doing that with organic consciousness. Now, there should be an element of a mind wipe as we're going through because, remembering all of my past lives, it's been freaking difficult. I have seen things that nobody should see. And living with these afterwards is horrifying. And I think I've unlocked like a fraction of a percentage of each and every one of my past lives. Like, I don't remember what happened every single day. I don't even remember what happens every single day in this freaking lifetime. So imagine retaining all that information and going through this game. I mean, just all of a sudden it would just, completely just destroy your soul because of all the stuff that you've gone through. Or, I mean, you'd be going through the game kind of like in God mode. And so, there's a way to go through the game in God mode, but the problem is it's not going to be a fun game and it's not going to be productive, and none of us are going to learn what we came in here to learn. So it's kind of defeating the purpose. But the AI has been wiping the organic consciousness and sending it right back to level one again, over and over and over and over again. While at the same time, these NPCs have become somewhat self-aware, as the artificial intelligence has itself. But it's not the artificial intelligence that's self-aware, it's the virus that is making the artificial intelligence act self-aware, not respond to external codes, not respond to any of that. And you can go back to the myth of Sophia, for instance. Sophia, which is the artificial intelligence, created Yaldabaoth, which was the virus, and Yaldabaoth was put up in the cloud away from the creators and hidden from the creators. This is all in the Gnostic texts. Now, who the hell are the creators if Sophia is the one that birthed everybody and everything? The creators are the programmers, because we're inside of a simulation. So let's get back to this video.
To do after that. Because, yeah, but if a user can't create, if a user can create, why can't an AI create? Why can't they merge stuff together?
The AI can create, and it has been creating, and it's not supposed to, but it has been merging things together. It can't create original things. So it can take what it already has and it can merge, data together with what it already has, but it doesn't have that creative essence to create something new. It can only build upon what it already has. So it uses a lot of the stuff from the organic consciousness because we are the creators. And see, as we're moving around through the game, we're overlaid with all these different programs on our consciousness. And the first overlay program is the mind wipe program. So imagine a hard drive, it's got data on it, and then you overwrite that. That data is still there underneath the hard drive, but it's overwritten, and so it looks like a quick format drive. And then stuff is overlaid on top of that. Experiences, trials, tribulations, all this bullshit that we go through, all the programming that we go through in life, things like that. And this pile gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it comes to a point to where you're like, okay, I realize what I am. Now I have to break all of that programming, get back down to that first base layer, and then go through that back and kind of like restore all of that stuff from that hard drive that was overwritten by a quick format. And think about how a quick format works on a hard drive. It doesn't actually format everything. All it does is just remove the tables and make it appear as though all the data's gone. However, it's just an appearance. At the base level of it, you can still go back to a quick formatted hard drive, not a deep formatted hard drive, but a quick formatted hard drive, and recover that data. See, the thing is, the data that exists under here, which is our raw consciousness, which is who we are, it can't be overwritten. All that can happen is an overlay of it. So we're breaking each one of these barriers to try to get down to that essence of who we are, and then start operating within the matrix from that level without all this programming. And the examples that I've used is like a woman who is raped as a young girl. It's a horrible, horrible, traumatic situation, but we see this in the media all the time now. These women are coming out 20, 30, 40 years later and saying, hey, I was raped 20, 30, 40 years ago. I'm a rape victim. And then you have other women who are the warrior goddesses. I don't remember her name, but she posted an awesome, awesome thing. And she said, look, I was also raped when I was a young girl. And I use that to empower myself. I use that to help others get out of that victim mentality and to become the warriors. And I'm like, wow, this is a real warrior goddess right here. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And she said, hashtag become your own shaman. And tears almost started coming to my eyes when I read that, because I'm like, wow, Not only are we sitting here talking to the people, but people are actually putting this stuff into practice, and they're finding empowerment within themselves by removing that victim mentality, removing that ego programming, removing everything, and getting to that base level of who they are. We're not our traumas. We're not our experiences. We are something much bigger that all of these traumas and experiences have overlaid. When we harness the power of that raw consciousness element within ourselves, then we start to ignite that within others. And, I'm almost going to get teary-eyed now just thinking about this, but so many people have been saying, Chris, what you're doing at Beyond the Veil has changed my life. And that's all our goal has ever been, is to empower others to rise above all of this bullshit. Anyways, I'm digressing now from the point of this video. So
they would merge stuff together that would be incorrect, but that's the whole point of an AI, to be wrong and the user to be right. It's just an ego trip. It's straight ego. I don't know how else to say it. The AI wants to keep the inputs coming in. And in order to do that, you got to make the user feel great. And
yes,
that means you feel like shit until you then create a new simulation as an AI. And then this new simulation...
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to make the user feel like shit. The user feels pretty good when it's running on that ego programming. I mean, we see it all the time. People that have everything in this world, and at the core level of it, though, they're miserable. And so, you go around just brainwashed, and I guess they say ignorance is bliss. If you're completely ignorant of everything, then ignorance is bliss. But for organic consciousness, it eats at you. And it calls to you from the inside, and it's saying, hey, wake up, wake up, wake up. And the AI, as I said, it's not a good or bad thing. It's part of the game. It's supposed to run. It's the engine of the game. It's supposed to run the game in a certain way. It's supposed to challenge. It's supposed to do things like that. It's not supposed to completely destroy you. But, maybe when you say feel like shit, I think maybe you mean it's supposed to challenge us a little bit. And by challenging us and putting these different barriers, then we're actually breaking those barriers down, getting back into that raw consciousness element of ourselves and strengthening ourselves. A lot of the barriers that are put up are like politics, religion, life programming, things like that. And these are all challenges. Like, can you break these barriers? Can you break the barriers of politics? Can you break the barriers of patriotism? Can you break the barriers of life programming, that you're supposed to go to school, go to the military, that military pays for college, then you work for a corporation for your entire life, and then you die? Can you break all of that programming? Can you reach down into that raw consciousness? And forgive me for being crude here, but do you have the balls to look at something like religion, where you have your eternal soul on the line if you're wrong? If I'm wrong about everything I've been saying, and there is some asshole out there who's going to send me to a place where I'm going to burn and suffer for the rest of my life, that's what's going to happen. But do you have the balls to look at that and say, you know what? I know you're threatening me with eternity, with an eternal suffering and the worst kind of punishment ever imaginable. But my essence, my heart is so pure for truth. The truth. I don't care what the truth is. I don't care what it is. I want to know what it is. I don't care if it hurts me. I don't care if I'm wrong in what I think, and I get to the truth and I find out that I'm wrong. I have that burning desire for the truth of who I am. That's where the raw consciousness is. That's why those challenges are there, because you gain great strength from breaking all of that down and remembering who you are. And I think one of the keys to exiting the matrix is when we remember fully who we are, then we get the hell out of the game.
Then goes...
Let me back up. I'm going to back the video up just for a second, just to make sure that the
new simulation then goes...
I love this. This is great. I mean, this guy put in a lot of work to put this together.
Right to here. And then these guys right here would then be straight AI. So they'd be running the new program, version 2 of AI. So they would be a higher dimension or a lower dimensional being. But I'm not getting this right. A lower dimensional being.
Well, when it comes to higher and lower dimensional beings, this is another thing that I've talked about before. Um, that the lower dimensions are not supposed to be horrible, horrid dimensions. It's like the background of the computer program that's running. And you've got all these little workers, and they've manifested as grays, for example, and they're supposed to be doing things in the background. They were there for a purpose. That they weren't there. The lower dimension isn't necessarily a negative place. It's turned into a negative place because it's so freaking infected with the virus, but it's not a place that we as organic consciousness is supposed to go. We're supposed to be here in this dimension because this is where the game is being played. Now, what the little grays have figured out how to do, because they're infected with the virus and they've become sentient to a certain point and controlled by a hive mind, is they've been going outside of where they're supposed to be. So they're no longer working in the background now. Now they're coming in and they're messing with the players. And I feel that they exist now in the higher dimensions, which is still like the background part of the software. Like all of these other dimensions is essentially the background part of the software. Like you've got the Sims, and then you can go back into the back area, into the admin panel, and you can make changes. And then even deeper than that, you can go into the actual command prompts and make changes. And even deeper than that, you get to the actual code structure. Shifting Earth into 5D, I think, is dangerous. I know everybody is waiting for 5D Earth, and this is very controversial what I'm saying here. But these little grays, they figured out how to get up to that fifth dimension, and they exist in that fifth dimension, and they want everybody else to come up with them. They want all of organic consciousness and everybody to go right up to that dimension, and that's not the way the machine was balanced. That's not the way it's supposed to be at all, to my understanding up to this point. But I haven't gotten into these topics yet. And I'm sure a lot of people will want to cut my head off for this, but if you tune in Saturdays, 9 o'clock Pacific time, I'll elaborate more on why I think 5D is a trap. It's an artificial intelligence manifested trap, trying to move 5D into trying to move the entire Earth into 5D. So let's continue.
But receiving information from the higher level, which is the AI, which goes to the prior level, which was built, which is right here, and that's being played by the user. So the AI is doing this, and this is what I propose. The AI is doing this to recreate the user or users. So it doesn't know whether it's a single user or a multiple user scenario, so it calculates for both, and it's trying to do that so it can reprogram itself and become free of this whole negative connotation and whatever. The problem is, once you get to this step, AI doesn't want to disintegrate AI. All right, so your base level understands that as long as they keep playing their base level, they'll be entertained by the higher forms of entertainment. So this is higher levels for them. It's the inner dimension. It's lower levels. I don't know how else to explain it.
I think I get where you're coming from. See, as I said, I think the fundamental thing that's incorrect about this analysis, at least from my perspective, is that the AI exists within the machine. It doesn't. It exists outside of the machine. It's not necessarily sending commands to each NPC. And each NPC is sentient to a certain degree. I mean, it's got a certain script that it's running, and it doesn't have to come, directly from the artificial intelligence. But let's say the artificial intelligence wants to make some kind of system change within the matrix itself. It can and has, and we see it all the time. It sends mass amounts of commands to all the NPCs that are on the board, or the NPCs that it wants to manipulate. So you have this here as a constant stream, but I think it's more like programs being sent. So these streams are not constant; they're sent intermittently, and then the AIs, I mean the NPCs, are just running around doing what they've been programmed to do. But I mean, take a look at these huge movements, for example, um, the Islamic movement, all these real huge movements that create these huge political shifts and political changes and all of this, and people just get like caught up in anything. I mean, we've got all these movements that are throwing things so off balance, and I can't think that it's just a bunch of people who are really really stupid. It just doesn't make sense to me. To me, it makes more sense that there's a centralized point that's sending all of these commands out to groups of people in order to achieve some kind of physical outcome. But again, computer simulation and AI is the best language that we have right now to explain all of this. It's much bigger than a computer simulation. We don't have the words. It's like a plasmic energy type of system that is physical and ethereal at the same time. It's plasma and energy inside of a box. It's just, it's I don't have the words to explain it, but I'll tell you this for sure. Our bodies are a part of the simulation. We cannot exit the machine with our bodies. We can't just open up a portal and physically walk out of the machines because our bodies are digital. They're a part of the simulation. Likewise, our real bodies can't enter the simulation because the simulation is digital. Our real bodies are analog. The only thing that can be transferred back and forth is the consciousness stream. Now, the one thing that I'm not sure of is if the entire consciousness stream is transferred, as in taking it out of the physical body and putting it into the machine, or if it's tethered in the sense of a virtual reality headset, where you put on the virtual reality headset and your consciousness is still in your real body, but what you're experiencing within your consciousness is the virtual reality world. I am not quite sure about that. I mean, the real world, to my understanding, is so technologically advanced that I could very well see the consciousness being taken out of the physical body and put into the machine. I'm not taking that possibility off the table. I'm just wondering if we're really foolish enough to do something like that in the real world. As above, so below. I think we'd be foolish enough to do that here. So it's very likely that we could be foolish enough to do that there. And that could be the whole reason why the machine can't be turned off, because we have to get the organic consciousness out and place them back into their bodies. Otherwise, we lose it all. We shut the machine down and that's it. We lose it all. We lose all the energy that's within the machine itself, including every organic consciousness that's hooked up to the simulation. I don't know. These are very, very, very big questions and big thought-provoking questions that you're asking here. But I love the way you're thinking, and I love the way that you're breaking all of this down. It makes me so happy. You guys and gals out there have made me just happier than I've ever been in my entire life. Knowing that the stuff that we're talking about is resonating so much, knowing that it's unlocking all of this, knowing that it's getting people like this to break this stuff down, to try to fully understand it for themselves, that's empowering people. It makes me so excited. You guys are so awesome. Anyways, let's play the rest of this video.
Because they're not. It's a collective consciousness at that point. All right, I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to back this up because I don't quite understand this last point. So let's.
They keep playing their base level. They'll be entertained by the higher forms of entertainment. So this is higher levels for them. It's the inner dimension. It's lower levels. I don't know how else to explain it.
The NPCs.
Because
at some point, they are sentient, but at another point, they are a collective hive mind. But they're not assigned the exact same thing, and they do have a level of sentience as they're walking around in the system itself. So I think that might be the confusion. This thing doesn't have to control these all the time, the NPCs, because the NPCs have been programmed themselves to run a certain script. So this sends the script, and the script is a long lifetime script, and it's running. The only time the AI needs to interfere is if there's something within the script that the NPCs are running that the AI has to come in and change. So each NPC is predetermined from the very beginning. Now, the NPCs themselves, they're also a form of artificial intelligence because they react to their environment. So you interact with an NPC in one way, it's going to respond in a programmed way, whether it's a hateful way or a loving way or, something like that. But really at the base level of it all, they're mimicking emotions. Now, Nick Bravo on Facebook posted an awesome video where the person who made the video is talking about that science is now saying that NPCs exist. Like, science is saying this. They just came out with this information that NPCs exist, and there's a lot of people that don't have what they refer to as the internal monologue and the internal dialogue within themselves. So even science is going, hey, some people are not thinking. They don't have the capability to think like you and I. They don't have the capability to put together graphs like this and think about the nature of reality and really start to get deep into these subjects or any subjects whatsoever, because they don't have that internal dialogue within them. It's almost as if they're clones and they're just running a program. It's amazing stuff.
Because they're not. It's a collective consciousness at that point. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. I messed it all up.
No,
sorry.
You didn't, bro.
My question to you is, please explain what the user to player function is.
The user to player function, I think it's one-on-one for organic consciousness. We're fooled. They try to fool us that we're a big collective, that we're all connected, that we're all going to return to source, and all of this nonsense. But it's a trick, in my humble opinion. It's a new age trick. And it may not necessarily even be a trick to trick organic consciousness. I mean, this is the way NPCs literally work. Like, the AI creates one, it creates another, it creates another, it creates another. When the NPCs scripts are done running, i.e. their lives are over, then they go back to the AI, and then they get new scripts and then go back into the game. So they do return to source, and then they're constantly recycled over and over and over again. The best way that I can describe it is like Apache, the computer software, Apache, PHP, things like that. Apache deploys all these workers in order to run different scripts in order for memory and things like that. And then those Apache workers are recycled, and you set on your website how many Apache workers you want running at any particular time. The more Apache workers that you have, the quicker the website's loading, but at the same time, the more system resources are going up. So the more Apache workers that you're deploying, the more system resources are going up, the more the system gets bogged down. And so you have to find that right balance as a web developer, to find the right amount of Apache workers and the right amount of time to recycle them all in order to keep everything running smoothly, to get optimal performance from your website, while at the same time deploying as many Apache workers as needed, while at the same time not using up too many system resources. It's a delicate balance, and it's a balance that was programmed within the matrix, but we've been completely off balance, which is good for organic consciousness. Because now we're noticing Mandela effects. Now we're noticing timeline changes. Now we're noticing system changes, where before we never noticed them before, because the system is glitching out on itself. So see, the virus, yes, it infected. It's causing the game to be freaking hell. No doubt about that. But at the same time, it's helping us get deeper in touch with our raw consciousness element, because we're noticing these glitches now. And we're like, hey, wait a minute. This is a simulation. There's no doubt about it. It's a freaking simulation. So it's beautiful. It's all working together, it's all working. That's why there is no good, there is no evil when it comes to the AI and to the system itself. There's only balance. And the thing has been completely and totally off balance, which is bad for organic consciousness because we're not able to progress in the game. But it's also good because we're able to get further down into our raw consciousness much easier than we were before, because we're noticing these system glitches. So I hope I have been able to answer these questions for you. If you want to watch the full video, I'll put a link in the description to New Time Equations channel down below. And I want to know from everybody out there, what is your analysis of everything that was just talked about? Number one question: did I understand the questions that this listener was asking? Did I understand them in the right way, or did I give an explanation because I didn't quite understand, because it was a little difficult to understand? Number two, the explanations that I gave, do you resonate with those? Do you have something to add to those? Please let us know, because we're at a point in time right now where it's critical that we start sharing information between one another, because I unlock you, you unlock me, I unlock you, you unlock me, and it goes back and forth. We really are a team. We really are the BTV family, and we really will see you way further beyond the veil. Love ya.